Welcome, everyone. We live our lives under the impression that control is the key to success, happiness, and fulfillment. From an early age, we're taught that in order to shape our future, we must take control of every aspect of our lives. We try to control our careers, our relationships, the opinions others have of us, and even the uncontrollable aspects of nature itself. It's as though we've convinced ourselves that if we can just get a firm enough grip on life, everything will fall into place and peace will follow. But here's the paradox. The tighter we grasp, the more elusive peace becomes. The more we attempt to control every detail, the more life seems to slip through our fingers like sand. We become frustrated when things don't go according to plan, anxious about the future, and constantly burdened by the weight of trying to manage everything around us. This is the illusion of control, the belief that we can bend life to our will if we just try hard enough. Yet life is not a machine that responds to our commands. It's more like a flowing river, dynamic, unpredictable, and ever-changing. To try and control it is to fight against its natural current. We get caught up in the idea that control equals security, but in reality all we are doing is creating a mental prison for ourselves, locked in by our fears, anxieties, and expectations. True freedom doesn't come from control, it comes from letting go of the need to control. When we release the obsessive desire to dictate how everything should unfold, we open ourselves up to the present moment. We stop resisting the flow of life and begin to move with it. This doesn't mean passively accepting everything that happens to us, but rather it's about recognizing that there are limits to what we can influence. Letting go of control is not about abandoning responsibility or drifting aimlessly. It's about understanding the nature of life itself. It's about acknowledging that while we can influence certain outcomes, we are not the masters of the universe. There are forces far beyond our control at play in every moment. When we stop clinging to the need to control, we create space for life to surprise us, to show us new paths and opportunities that we might never have considered had we been rigidly focused on controlling every step. In detachment from control, there's a profound sense of freedom. We no longer waste our energy resisting what is, nor do we constantly worry about what might be. We are free to be fully present, to engage with life as it unfolds, rather than as we wish it to be. In this state of surrender, we realize that peace was never something to be won through control. It was always there, waiting for us to simply stop grasping. Letting go of the illusion of control is an invitation to trust life. It's the realization that life has its own intelligence, its own rhythm, and when we align ourselves with that flow, rather than constantly trying to impose our will upon it, we discover a deeper peace, a more genuine form of freedom. So when you feel the urge to control rising within you, ask yourself, what are you really trying to achieve? Is it peace, security, happiness? And if so, what of these things can only be found by letting go? By surrendering the illusion that you can control everything, you open yourself to a life that is richer, more fluid, and ultimately more peaceful. True freedom, then, is not the product of control, but of the willingness to release it, to flow with life rather than fight against it, to trust that even in uncertainty, there is a wisdom that will guide you if only you let go enough to allow it. When we hear the phrase letting go, many of us mistakenly associate it with giving up, withdrawing, or becoming indifferent. We imagine it means detaching ourselves from life's experiences, losing our passion, or caring less about the people and things that matter to us. But this is a profound misunderstanding of what it means to practice the art of letting go. In reality, letting go is not about abandoning life. It's about releasing the need to control outcomes, expectations, and attachments. It's about allowing life to unfold in its own rhythm without the constant interference of our anxious minds. Detachment does not mean indifference. It doesn't require you to withdraw from relationships, desires, or dreams. Rather, it invites you to engage fully with life, but without the heavy baggage of clinging to specific outcomes. You can still care deeply about your goals, relationships, and experiences, but the difference is in how you approach them, without the suffocating need to control how they turn out. When we cling to outcomes, whether it's success in our careers, validation in our relationships, or certainty about the future, we create tension, fear, and frustration within ourselves. The more we grip, the more we live in a constant state of stress, always trying to force life to conform to our expectations. But life, with all its unpredictability, rarely obeys our rigid demands. In our attempts to control the uncontrollable, we often miss the beauty of the present moment, becoming prisoners of our future-focused anxieties. Letting go, in contrast, is an act of trust. It's the recognition that life has its own natural flow, and that flow doesn't always align with our carefully laid plans. When you release your grip on how things should be, you open yourself to the possibility of how things can be. You stop resisting what is and start moving in harmony with life's unfolding. Imagine trying to hold on to water by squeezing it in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. But if you open your hand, the water rests there naturally. In the same way, when we let go of trying to force outcomes, life flows more freely. We allow space for new possibilities, insights, and opportunities to arise, things we may never have considered had we been fixated on a specific result. This doesn't mean abandoning your dreams or aspirations. It means being fully engaged in the process while releasing attachment to how it unfolds. When you stop clinging to the need for things to go exactly as planned, you discover a sense of inner peace that isn't dependent on external conditions. You are free to experience life in its richness, without the constant anxiety of trying to make everything fit into your preconceived notions of how it should be. The art of letting go also involves surrendering the need for approval from others. So often we are attached to how others perceive us, basing our self-worth on their opinions or judgments. But when you let go of that attachment, you free yourself from the endless cycle of seeking validation. You realize that your worth is intrinsic, not something to be earned or lost based on external praise or criticism. Letting go is about embracing uncertainty with grace. Life is inherently unpredictable. And when we accept that, we stop fighting against the unknown. Instead, we learn to flow with it, trusting that whatever happens is part of the greater tapestry of our lives. In this way, detachment becomes a powerful practice, not of withdrawal, but of deep engagement with life as it is, not as we wish it to be. When you let go, you experience a profound shift in your perspective. You move from a mindset of scarcity, where you are constantly worried about losing something, to a mindset of abundance, where you recognize that life has infinite possibilities, many of which you may not yet see. When we become attached to anything, whether it's material possessions, relationships, success, or even specific outcomes, we are, in essence, trying to hold on to something that is ultimately beyond our control. We are seeking permanence in a world that is, by its very nature, temporary. And when these things inevitably change or slip away, we are left with feelings of disappointment, frustration, and loss. This is the root of suffering. Consider a relationship where one person becomes deeply attached to the idea of the other, never leaving or changing. They cling to their partner, expecting them to remain the same forever, to fulfill all their emotional needs, and to never disappoint. But relationships, like everything else in life, evolve. People grow, circumstances shift, and expectations don't always align. The attachment to the relationship, rather than the natural flow of it, creates suffering. The fear of loss, the anxiety of unmet expectations, and the need for control suffocate the joy that could have been present if the relationship had been allowed to simply be. In the same way, when we attach ourselves to specific outcomes, whether it's a job promotion, a financial goal, or an achievement, we set ourselves up for potential disappointment. Life doesn't always go according to plan, and when things don't turn out the way we had hoped, our attachment to those expectations causes pain. We become frustrated with ourselves, with others, and with life itself, because reality did not conform to our desire. But here's the key. Detachment is not about giving up on desires or relationships. It's not about becoming cold, indifferent, or uncaring. Rather, detachment is the liberation from the chains of attachment. It is the ability to engage fully with life, its relationships, desires, and experiences, without being bound by them. When we detach, we don't stop loving or caring. Instead, we stop clinging to the outcomes of those